Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the glass. 20 people sat around that anniversary table, forks frozen midair, and nobody said a word. Sarah stared at the man standing in the doorway, her husband's business partner, uninvited, holding a bottle of wine like he belonged there. Like he was family. She looked at her husband. He wouldn't meet her eyes. The candles flickered. The room smelled like roasted garlic and her mother's old perfume, the one she wore every anniversary since their wedding day, but none of that mattered right now. Because 3 days ago, Sarah had found something in the bank statements. Something her husband never explained, and the man walking toward their table right now was the reason why. She smiled, because that's what you do at your own anniversary dinner. But inside, something had already cracked. And what happened in the next 10 minutes would silence every single person in that room. If stories like this move you, stories about silent strength, about women who hold families together with nothing but grace, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel keep telling these stories. And if you believe silence is never the same as weakness, subscribe, because there's a lot more truth coming. Sarah wasn't always the quiet one. 10 years ago, she was the one with the business degree, the one with the plan. She met David at a small accounting firm downtown. He had big dreams and no capital. She had a modest inheritance from her father, a retired engineer who built his fortune, one careful decision at a time. When David wanted to start his own company, Sarah didn't hesitate. She didn't just support him emotionally, she handed him the exact number he needed. No paperwork drama, no conditions. Just trust. Pay me back whenever, she told him. We're a team. For years, that's exactly what they were. She raised their daughter. She managed the house. She let David take full credit for the company's success, because that's what supportive wives do, right? At least, that's what she believed. But somewhere along the way, David stopped seeing her as a partner. He started seeing her as background noise. 3 days before their anniversary, Sarah was organizing old files when she found a folder she wasn't supposed to see. Wire transfers. Monthly. Going to an account under a name she didn't recognize. $15,000. Every single month. For the last 2 years, she confronted David that same night, voice steady, heart pounding. Who is this money going to? David sighed, like she was the unreasonable one. It's for Marcus. He saved the company when we almost lost the Denver contract. I owe him. You owe him our savings? You wouldn't understand business, Sarah? That sentence hit harder than anything else he'd said in 10 years of marriage. She didn't yell. She didn't cry in front of him. She just nodded quietly and walked away. But something inside her had shifted. Because Sarah remembered something David didn't know she remembered, the exact year the company almost collapsed. The exact year her father, quietly, without telling anyone, wired something too. She just never had proof. Until now. The anniversary dinner had already been planned for weeks. She wasn't going to cancel it, wasn't going to give David the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart. She invited their closest family. She invited David's mother. She even, reluctantly, allowed David to invite a few of his business associates, never expecting Marcus himself to walk through that door holding a bottle of wine like a trophy. David stood up to greet him, all smiles, hand extended. Sarah's grip tightened around her napkin. She didn't know it yet, but the woman sitting quietly at the head of the table was about to become the reason this entire family finally saw the truth. Because someone else had been invited to this dinner too. Someone David didn't know about. Someone who was already walking through the front door. The front door opened again, and this time the room actually went silent. An older man stepped in, slow but steady, leaning slightly on a wooden cane. White hair, sharp eyes, wearing a suit that looked older than some of the guests. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was Mr. Whitfield, her father's oldest friend, the man who had mentored David when the company was nothing but an idea on paper. Nobody had seen him in years, He'd retired, moved away, gone quiet. David's smile faltered for just a second before he recovered it. Mr. Whitfield, what a surprise Sarah invited me, the old man said simply, eyes already on her. She called me last week, asked me a question I've been waiting 10 years for someone to ask. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder, worn at the edges. These are the original bank records from the company's first year, he said, voice calm but carrying across the whole room. David, you've told people for a decade that Marcus saved this company during the Denver crisis. Marcus shifted in his seat. David's jaw tightened. That's true, David said. He wired the emergency funds that kept us afloat. He wired money, yes, Mr. Whitfield said. 2 years ago. Small amount, quietly repaid within 6 months with interest, which you've been paying ever since, apparently at $15,000 a month for a debt that was settled long ago. Gasps around the table. Sarah's mother-in-law set down her fork. But that's not what saved this company, Mr. Whitfield continued. This is. He opened the folder and placed it in front of David. Wire transfer records. A name everyone at that table recognized immediately. Sarah's father. Your father-in-law funded this company from day one, Mr. Whitfield said, looking directly at David now. Not just the launch, the building lease. The first year of payroll, when you couldn't afford to pay yourself. He never told you because he didn't want you feeling like you owed him. He wanted you to feel like a real founder. Sarah felt tears building, but she held them back. She'd known her father was generous. She never knew how generous. He made me promise not to say anything unless it truly mattered, Mr. Whitfield said quietly. I think it matters now. David stared at the papers, hands trembling slightly. I didn't know. You didn't ask, Mr. Whitfield said. You just assumed the man who built you up was someone else. And the woman who's been standing beside you this entire time, the one whose father saved your company, whose savings are bleeding out to repay a debt that isn't even real anymore. You told her she wouldn't understand business. Marcus stood up slowly, face pale. I never asked for continued payments after the loan was repaid. I told you that 18 months ago, David. The room turned to David. Sarah stood up. Not dramatically. Just calmly, the way her father used to stand when he had something important to say. I'm not angry that you made a mistake, she said, voice steady. I'm angry that you made me feel small for questioning it. My father gave you everything and asked for nothing but respect for his daughter. That's the only debt that ever mattered. David looked at her, really looked at her. Maybe for the first time in years. Sarah, I'm sorry. I got caught up building something, and I forgot who helped me build it. I forgot to see you as my partner. I'll fix this. The payments stop tonight, and I'll figure out what I actually owe Marcus, properly, transparently. And I owe you a conversation we should have had years ago. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still hard conversations ahead. But for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt seen. Not as a supportive wife in the background, not as someone who wouldn't understand business, but as the woman who held the family together when no one was watching, and who finally let the truth speak for itself. Mr. Whitfield closed the folder gently. Your father always said the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs time. Sarah looked around the table at her daughter, her mother-in-law, at David, still processing everything. And for the first time in weeks, she took a full breath. Some people mistake silence for surrender. But silence can also be someone quietly gathering the truth, waiting for the right moment to let it speak for itself. If you believe that truth always finds its way to the light, comment, "Truth speaks" below. And if this story reminded you of someone strong in your own life, someone who held everything together in silence, tell us about them. We read every single comment.